Well, it's the middle of May, so that can only mean one thing: warmer weather. I don't know about you guys, but I've grown a bit tired of living in a giant freezer for the past 4 months. Finally time for me to melt the icicles forming from my college student tears and enjoy some heat at last. And if I was to choose where to go for a sunny vacation, I'm going to Britain! Oh, no, not that Britain. No, I'm talking about this Britain. Travel back in time to the mid to late Jurassic period, and the UK would look very different from what it is today. During this time period, much of Europe and Africa was covered by the ancient TeknoAXE, resulting in a chain of islands similar to those seen in Southeast Asia. Of course, this being the Jurassic period, the UK was home to a wide variety of pterosaurs, marine reptiles, and of course, dinosaurs. It was a highly dangerous landscape, so you may believe that it was safe to stay on the beach. After all, there's not much food for large meat eaters, and you're away from the dangers in the Wait, what's that? Every paradise has its predators lurking just out of sight, and Jurassic England was no exception. From 166 to 154 million years ago, the coasts of what would eventually become Peterborough were the hunting grounds for a seafaring sovereign, Eustreptospondylus oxoniensis. One of the more famous dinosaurs from the UK, Eustreptospondylus had some taxonomic confusion. The earliest mentionings of this animal were in 1841 and came from Sir Richard Owen, who found the fossils in Oxford and labeled them as a specimen of Megalosaurus. You can't really blame Owen, as paleontology was a young science and only a handful of species were known at this time. However, in 1964, the fossils were re-examined and renamed to Eustreptospondylus. The fossils that these researchers examined showed a rather small dinosaur, no taller than a human. The holotype specimen of Eustreptospondylus was estimated to have been 4.6 meters long and 218 kilograms in weight, but in American terms, 15 feet long and more than 480 pounds. Some researchers have theorized that this size was mainly due to insular dwarfism. However, it turns out that the holotype specimen wasn't even fully grown, so it's likely that these animals could grow even bigger than this, and we're talking 20 feet long and half a ton in weight kind of bigger. Today, this animal is known to be a member of the Megalosauridae family of theropods. So I guess Richard Owen wasn't too far off, but what he didn't know is that megalosaurids were relatives of spinosaurids. In fact, Eustreptospondylus and its subfamily are more closely related to Spinosaurus than to Megalosaurus or Torvosaurus. Yeah, I know, kinda weird, isn't it? It may seem strange, but there was a time where Eustreptospondylus was thought to live a very similar lifestyle to their sail-backed cousins. As mentioned earlier, much of Europe was an archipelago in the TeknoAXE, and this has led some researchers to believe that Eustreptospondylus was a seafarer, much like some modern reptiles. Some remains of Eustreptospondylus were even found with muscles attached to them, so there is good evidence for this animal being a sea dinosaur, right? Well, like most interesting ideas about dinosaurs, this has been quite the subject of debate amongst paleontologists. Some researchers favor the idea, pointing out how this animal's anatomy could allow it to be an excellent swimmer. However, other researchers believe that the animal was primarily terrestrial, suggesting that the holotype was washed out to sea by a flood where it died. At this point, no one knows for sure what this animal did, and it exists in this kind of ecological gray area. But there is a case to be made for an aquatic lifestyle if you just look to modern animals for an example. Some living animals seem as though they're unable to swim great distances, but every now and then they surprise us. Karai camels have been known to swim between islands in search of food. Ostriches have been seen swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, and the Komodo dragon has been seen island hopping across Indonesia despite mainly being found on the island of Komodo. The point isn't to suggest that all of these modern animals rely on the ocean for their survival, but rather to show that the natural world can throw a curveball at us. In fact, when you look at their skeletons, nothing about these animals suggests that they were good at swimming. But we all know how that story went. The same should be true for extinct animals, including dinosaurs. And this same logic could apply to Eustreptospondylus, with a bit of biological evidence. You see, a lot of theropod dinosaurs have hollow, air-filled bones. Not only does this influence their large size, but it also means they have something of a built-in life jacket that can keep them afloat. Again, the debate is still going on, but there is definitely evidence supporting Eustreptospondylus having the ability to island hop. Unfortunately, island hopping means running the freaking gauntlet. This is still the Mesozoic, and beneath the water was a whole host of creatures ready to tear you limb from limb. The top predators of this ocean were the plesiosaurids, and the two biggest threats in these waters were Pliosaurus and Liopleurodon. Both were giant predators with enormous skulls, armed with lethal teeth and a powerful bite. They weren't prejudiced either, and would have happily eaten anything, including a dinosaur traveling to an island. But don't think that two orca-sized marine reptiles were all that Eustreptospondylus had to be wary of. Smaller plesiosaurs like Irtosaurus and Marmonectes could have happily tried drowning a seafaring theropod. Marine crocodiles such as Metriorhynchus and Suchotus could have also ditched seafood at some point for some terrestrial cuisine. But what even motivates a large predatory theropod to go through Poseidon's hellhole? Yeah, that'd do it. So, Eustreptospondylus likely fed on carrion, possibly from corpses washed up on the coastline. But of course, simply scavenging isn't enough for an active predator, and they would have likely went for more lively meals. Small dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and potentially smaller marine reptiles could have been hunted by Eustreptospondylus, and if we were around, they probably wouldn't hesitate to turn us into a meal. But whether it swam through the Jurassic seas or not, Eustreptospondylus was still an impressive animal. A beachcombing dinosaur hopping from island to island is an interesting image, and there really isn't anything alive that you can compare them to. It just goes to show that the natural world can still surprise us, even if it means I have to get a tan somewhere safer. But yeah, that's the end of the line for this video. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment on this video, as it lets YouTube know that people like this content and want to see more. Final season is over at last, and I managed to pass my classes relatively well. To celebrate, I'm heading somewhere fun with some friends of mine, and don't worry, I've got a video planned for that after my next one. Well, that's it for now. See you around.